Following the Chris Tyson drama explosion, which included people taking issue with Chris's association with and apparent fandom of an artist called Shadman, many people were quick to call out those who were outraged for perceived double standards. It wasn't just Chris, they said. Many people associated with Shadman and propagated his work, a portfolio which most iniquitously includes pornographic cartoons depicting Keemstar's daughter. Why aren't all these other people being hounded? It was asked. The expectation, presumably, was that everyone simply hates trans people and would ignore this criticism of their Chris hate because they don't truly care. It's just something they can use as a weapon against an LGBTQ individual. However, in actuality, lists were made of collaborators, associates, and supporters of Shadman. Reasons for inclusion on such lists ranged from merely tweeting at him to supporting his art financially or even using it in their own creations. Some of those on these lists caught less flack, and some caught more for various reasons you can imagine. One individual who certainly feels he caught more flack than was due is the VTuber called Nux Taku.
And it seems Nux Taku had private conversations with Shadman throughout 2021. Curious! 1.3 million views, 200,000, 100,000, 100,000, 100,000. The point that I'm trying to make here is, for some reason, I became the goddamn enemy numero uno when it comes to this freaking bullshit.
I will quickly say, based solely on the content of the video in that tweet, his involvement with Shadman would seem relatively minor. No pun intended. It's a newer clip of Nux calling him a Nazi-ish, pedo-ish guy, alongside older clips sharing that he's received DMs from Shadman. I myself, even, would certainly speak with a freak, especially if they say weirdo stuff that entertains me, and that doesn't suggest a mutually respectful relationship. Fine. So far. Less comfortable a piece of evidence, though, for many, is that Nux Taku once requested to collab with Shadman, presumably for a video.
This is gonna be fun. I like this one a lot. Someone tags me, probably this guy. I don't remember what this was about. Shadman says, a bit too middle school. I say, wanna collab? He says, Lamau, no, but your heart's in the right place. I say, understandable, have a nice day. I'm here when you come around.
This information was amplified to a large audience by Keemstar, but Nux Taku had an explanation.
People are making this as some sort of, I am supporting him and I'm trying my best to become friends with Shadman, this monster. Which is fucking stupid if you know my content at all. I troll, confront people when I collab the same way you do, talking to Keemstar, on LOLcow, and if you watch my videos, you know that. I don't mind if you hate me, but at least hate me for the right reasons.
So it would have been a confrontation. He would have owned Shadman. Nux further clarifies.
I am going to prove the point of my troll confront people shtick. Okay, so let me pull up my original tweet where I covered this, because I did in fact mention this over here. So I say, people saying I'm a liar because of these tweets. Aside from not knowing the extent of his shit then, meaning I didn't know about the Keemstar daughter shit, I'd collab with all kinds of scum. Most of my collabs are trolling, and I was gonna grill him. I'd interview EDP. I've never commissioned, promoted, been friends with him.
Okay. You could easily imagine someone getting EDP onto a call to treat as a punching bag. Although, perhaps simply imagining things isn't enough, and it certainly wasn't enough for the YouTuber Lyrics.
Lyrics, commentary YouTuber fellow, says, good faith question, hoping you could clarify. This is huge, because most questions, not at all good faith. So you didn't know the extent of his shit then, but you were going to grill him at the same time. If you did get that collab, what would you grill Shad on? From what I remember, he was known as the guy who drew minors sexually. You didn't know that? The rare good faith question. I knew about the lolly stuff and some of his art, like the bestiality with fictional children, etc. Definitely enough to grill the guy. Holy shit, there is so much more. There is so much more than just that. That is the worst, and that would have been the hard cutoff for me to not even respond to the guy, probably. But I legitimately was gonna grill the guy. If you've seen my collabs, I didn't know about Keemstar's daughter, although that's the less important part of my tweet. Collabs are not promotions or condonement in any way on my channel.
He would have bullied him, crushed his soul over lowly bestiality. I should disclose to you at this point, dear viewer, the fact that I have a little bird sitting on my shoulder who goes by the name Nicandros and is a regular in my Twitch chat. He's shown me some things, and because of that, this is where I start to feel a niggling doubt. For instance, I mean, he did specify clearly child bestiality is what he has an issue with, so it's not the same, but goddamn. The line for what he considers freak shit suited only for ripping on has got to be a bit closer to Shadman than it is for me. I mean, cartoon woman being raped by a dog in a public humiliation ritual crosses it easily for me, personally. You know me, I do love making a spectacle of strange things, but this is just bait for who knows what kind of person to click it and then watch him react to a speedrun fail compilation. What kind of fish are you gonna catch with a worm like that on your hook? This kind. The kind that's into that stuff and will share the source for your viewers in the comments. Wait a second. That profile pic. Who's that little cartoon girl? I swear I've seen her before. Oh, how adorable. What a sweet child. I've also seen her in a thumbnail of a video on Nux Taku's Nuxanor channel. A rather unwise reverse image search on Google eventually leads you to a hentai site page where the image, which features an erect penis that had just been cut off for the thumbnail, is tagged with, among other labels, imminent rape, loli. Further, on the topic of his viewers being inspired to seek the porn he showcases in thumbnails, although he does sometimes help them out by pinning the porn artist's name when it's commented, there is also a porn-sick fellow on the fan-run Nux Taku subreddit who goes by reality_false, who is a prodigious source poster for everything else. He posts the thumbnail and shares where the porn's from, or at least he did until he was apparently banned 3 years ago. That said, his posts still remain, meaning he functions as an archive for Nux Taku's changed or deleted dodgy choices from before that point. Like this. Hey look, it's our little friend again. The source image isn't tagged with loli on the site it's shared on this time, but I'm going to go ahead and say that's a cartoon of an undeveloped teen or preteen hairless girl getting railed. Neat. FYI, this whole video was deleted for some reason, so I don't know what was in it. By the way, that little shark girl, she's an avatar for a VTuber, and she's called Gura. Here's a little clip where Nux Taku mentions her.
There's lollies, which I have absolutely nothing against. I don't think anyone has anything against lollies, okay? Like Chibidoki, or Megumin from Konosuba, or Gura. Nothing has anything against lollies. It's lolly that's the gray zone.
He's very clear though, it's gray. It's not full pedo. His thumbnails aren't full pedo. It's sus, but they're just cartoons.
This guy's pinned tweet that he retweeted is this, all right? Look, it's lewd lolly stuff. That's a line, all right? Lewd lolly stuff, that's the gray zone. Not actual pedophilia, but the gray zone.
I'm a bit harsher regarding people who are aroused by depictions of children, especially depending on, how realistic the proportions are, but I can tolerate that perspective. Elsewhere, I've heard him go into a bit more detail about his thoughts.
This is like one of those debates that in the anime community, it's so divided. Like, there are actual people that think it's not weird to fetishize lollies. I'm just saying. Definitely better to fetishize lollies than real-life children. That's not the debate, but that doesn't make it not weird and cringe and something that I would keep away from, my kids, per se.
Quite a light tone. So I'm still not really buying the idea he'd have been super hostile to Shadman in a collab. Be real, it would have been light ribbing, that any weirdo cartoon cunny connoisseur has heard a million times. But I wonder, how does that opinion play out in terms of letting children around the kind of people who use loli porn in their thumbnails to expose a mass audience to such material? Just a thought. One more little thing I want to peep before getting back on track a bit. Presumably with this being his take on loli, his take on cartoons, we could definitely expect him to be much more serious about questionable things involving real children, right? Wait, that's not funny. That's the other thing. Extremely concerning. For clarity, the words I heard him say were, "So now you got all these underage kids on TikTok doing the things. Obviously solo, but the implication is there." and then straight into commenting on how catchy the song is. Teehee. I'm sorry. Kids mimicking a pornographic cartoon of an Animal Crossing character having sex on TikTok is not the kind of thing I'd use as a throwaway line in a video I'm making as a grown man, wiggling an avatar around in front of a censored porn vid. Children being drawn to adult material by use of a family-friendly IP and then being influenced to recreate it in videos for attention is spine-tingling. Masses of minors conditioned into producing soft-core chomo porn. This is a pedo's dream. Literally. There are jokes to be made, sure. Jokes to be made about everything, but just saying what's happening happily and lightheartedly? That's just normal and chill to Nux? For me, that's evidence we're in nightmare world. If you don't quite get what's spooking me here, here's Turkey Thomas explaining a relevant strategy used by pedos for you. Funnily enough, this clip features an image you might recognize.
EPI is a shorthand for early introduction, in which minors are exposed to adult content. They fantasize about perverting their innocence, often by utilizing Rule 34 to flood sites with a younger demographic. It's a form of fetish mining explicitly used to groom children.
Flooding a mixed audience site with adult material to introduce children to a kind of porn they might be more comfortable with, to hook 'em, huh? Interesting. Not suggesting this was Nux Taku's intent with these. Perhaps so many are removed because he realized how bad a look it is, or maybe it just became a YouTube problem at some point. But what I would suggest is that his clickbait strategy shows supremely terrible judgment, or recklessness, at the very least. Back to his TikTok comment. I find it concerning that children performing these actions on camera for anyone to see could represent direct success of this strategy. And even if it's not the direct outcome of this deliberate tactic, it's sickening that there's a system that nudges kids to produce material for these freaks. Okay, loli's a gray area. Alright, Nux. What do you think adults watching those kids on TikTok are? And remember, not to necessarily blame anyone who produces adult material that utilizes video game elements and tries to keep it in appropriate places, but just by these animations existing, you end up with commenters talking about them on parts of the web that do appeal to kids and which they freely access in a way that wouldn't generate parental suspicion, such as in the comments for game music that's been featured in such porn, perhaps directing them there. Forget the quote-unquote lowly gray area. Genuine, hardcore nonces love when things work out this way. Hear it straight from the pedo's mouth. Well, not Tom, but the guy he's quoting.
I love the idea of cute streaming to porn their favorite games. That's how I got a porn addiction.
But perhaps I've been premature. Maybe I've been unfair. Nux does continue to talk about that TikTok trend in his video. I'm sure he'll elaborate on the children he mentioned miming sex.
This is currently the most concerning trend on TikTok.
Is it really the most concerning trend on TikTok? There's literally a trend right now called devious licks, where people break into schools or are in schools and steal stuff. That is a trend on TikTok right now. But no, this is the most disturbing trend on TikTok. Alright, dude.
Sorry, what? You're really going to tell me that kids are creating erotic dance material for pedos to enjoy, and then the follow-up is to downplay it? You can discuss which is worse, perhaps taking into account risk of injury, reputation, future ruination, blah blah blah. But why take a side so hard?
Well, more and more TikTokers have started to recreate that dance, and it's got people concerned. Basically, a lot of people are afraid that the dance is going to get really popular, and kids are going to start coming on the app and doing it and get targeted by predators.
No one's afraid of that. Alright, maybe I'm not around TikTok enough, and I don't understand the ecosystem.
You don't need a degree in computer science for this, buddy. You told me kids are posting these videos. Who do you think might be watching?
But I don't think that people are afraid of kids being targeted by predators because they're doing a dance, okay? Kids are targeted by predators on TikTok for freaking breathing crooked. I don't think this dance is gonna push anyone over the edge, but that's just me.
Oh no, it absolutely will push them over the edge, and I mean that in a very disgusting way. Nux can comprehend the sus nature of loli and what it may suggest about those who enjoy it, but will tell us that kids are filming themselves mimicking sex acts for anyone in the world to watch and can't understand intuitively why that's messed up, regardless of whether or not someone comes and abducts them. Not sure our boy's all there. On that point of what apparently seems normal for him, if even this sickening ecosystem is only cause for light-hearted comment and downplay, you'll have to forgive me again if my doubts regarding exactly how hard Nux would have grilled Shadman over lowly stuff continue to grow exponentially. Even without this little context detour, there was one man who doubted even without all this information. Remember from earlier, it was Lyrics. Let's pick that back up now.
Appreciate the reply. If you have a history of doing many collabs for the sole purpose of trolling them, I think this is fair. Not gonna lie, when saying I was asking for a collab as a troll, it looks kind of bad. If that's what you've done before, it's believable. Well, this over here is a collab where I collabed with Kagi Films, a voice actor, and it was purely for I told him that we were going to get
blah blah blah. So Lyrics very fairly asks Nux, who claims he would only have Shadman on to troll him, if he has a history of bringing people on to mess with them, clearly meaning something like an ambush, really mess with them. Lyrics wants proof that Nux would treat Shadman rough, obviously. Here are a couple clips I've selected from the videos Nux uses to demonstrate he's a real stone-cold troll beast.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. The thing is, you're actually one of the best dub voice actors. Whenever I see you in a show, I'm always excited. Like, I unironically watch the Horimiya dub because I think you do such a good job.
Oh, thanks, man. It's a really cute show.
I usually watch anime and sub, but Horimiya, dude, you kill it.
Roll the clip of me killing the turtle.
Oh, he's very owned, and you clearly have no fondness for each other. Damn, what a killer.
Disclaimer, I swore that I would put this in the intro if the One Piece action adaptation looks awesome, and I'm not saying or confirming that anything happened behind the scenes, but it looks actually really cool based on what I was told. All right, we're gonna just keep it like that for legal ambiguity.
No matter what he does after this point, this video is effectively an ad. Self-aware dick-sucking is still dick-sucking. What this guy's calling trolling, I call extremely light banter, general mischief, shit I do with people I like. He shows us stuff like tricking people into saying words so he can snip them together into a song, messing around with Deji. It's bog standard social media cross-promo. Him saying it's not doesn't make it true. It just means he's retarded or lying. I'll let you pick. The one clip he shows where he kinda goes in on someone doesn't even really count. It's Boogie2988. His brand is Punching Bag. So it's no surprise that Lyrics wasn't satisfied. He said, so I just looked through the 2 examples you gave me of the videos where you quote-unquote troll, and you lied to my face, dude. You shouted out both of them, said you had a fun time, and said they were cool guys. These vids are literally just promotion for them. Weird examples you gave to defend the Shadman collab request. Can you clear this up, dude? It seems you were completely dishonest to me in your framing here. And from these examples, I can only assume you would treat Shadman the same if you would have gotten the collab. Fair, I'd say. It's worse that Nux gave these examples than if he gave no examples at all. Sadly, as far as I can tell at the time of writing, Nux Taku didn't have time to respond to these ones. Odd. And this statement from Nux's video seems really odd now, doesn't it?
Collabs are not promotions or condonement in any way on my channel.
I don't think I like this guy. He gives me weirdo, slimy worm vibes. And you know what? I take back what I said at the beginning. Given such a severe mismatch between my values, my perspective on things, my judgment, my understanding of communication of things, and his, I wouldn't take his word on the general characterization of his Shadman interactions anymore, despite having been willing to give benefit of the doubt earlier.
I just scrolled back in my DMs from, how old is this? 1 second. 2020 with Shadman, because he sent me some wild shit.
To a man like this, what even counts as wild shit anyway? Knowing Nux Taku's level of tolerance, I doubt he's solely referring to the couple of messages he shared publicly. Do you really still believe, given just the few highlights I've shared, that he really thought Shadman was purely a freak specimen to be toyed with? Bear in mind, he claims during all of this he was unaware of the Keemstar daughter thing. so Shad to him was just an edgy lolly boy. Which brings me to one last little Shad nugget that made me chuckle.
Also, Nux used a censored picture of Shadman's porn comic of Arya Stark played by a child actor of Game of Thrones for a thumbnail. This is all wrong. Okay, so we'll just do this one first. So I did use Shadman art in a thumbnail once. I made a video talked about fucking awful Game of Thrones, cursed Game of Thrones memes. One of the cursed Game of Thrones memes that popped up when I looked up fucking cursed Game of Thrones fucked up shit on Google Images was a Shadman art, and I didn't even know it was a Shadman art when I used it. I got comments saying I recognize the Shadman art, etc., etc., and I changed the art, not last week to avoid drama, not yesterday so I could have a Zynga response video and make an apology. No apologies! I changed the art 2 to 3 years ago!
Alright, seems true he changed it a long time ago. Whether you believe the way he found it or not is up to you, but we'll get to that.
Also, to make things worse, they say that I used a picture from Shadman's porn comic of Arya Stark played by a child actress for Game of Thrones. Lies! It wasn't even Arya Stark. It was the freaking you know nothing Jon Snow girl. It was her. It was not Arya Stark. These people literally will go crazy out of every possible way.
Yep, seems true too. I'm not a Game of Thrones enjoyer, but seems correct. And I know it seems true because I checked, and I regret checking.
I knew about the lolly stuff and some of his art, like the bestiality with fictional children, etc.
Yeah, the collection of images the thumbnail pic came from includes such an example of child dog rape. Now, I'm not saying he's lying about his knowledge of the true source of the image. Who could prove that? But I do find it really funny that in the set, there are 2 versions of the girl he used. One more developed with larger breasts, and one with much smaller breasts, which could be seen as catering to a normal range of tastes, but given the artist becomes slightly sinister. What tickles me, you see, is that, of course, Nux Taku's old thumbnail used the less developed version. I do also have to explain another reason for my unprovable suspicion about his honesty. Back in the day, my exposure to Shadman was primarily just seeing people talking about him, and the only thing of his I remember ever seeing is drawings of Hillary Clinton as a lolly. However, in looking into recent drama, I have become more familiar with Shadman's style than I'd ever want to be. He's a freak, but he's a skilled freak, and he has a style. I'm not confident that someone steeped in drawn degeneracy wouldn't have known at a glance that the drawing Nux used in his thumbnail was by Shadman. In fact, his commenters noticed immediately, for instance. Maybe it was less that he realized it was Shadman, and more that he realized people pointing out so loudly that it's Shadman was an issue. Merely a possibility. Folks, at this point, forget roasting Shadman, forget trolling him. I think that guy's in jail anyway, the time has passed. Maybe this Nux Taku guy is the one in need of some flames. Seems like a soft target for ridicule to me. Ooh, maybe someone should troll collab him like he was gonna do with Shadman. Any podcast that would do something like that? Having said that, as you know, I'm not an, oh no, you gotta block the weirdos and potential creeps and never interact kinda guy. But he wouldn't be my first pick of teammate. I wouldn't have him as a consistent podcast member. Just my taste. So when controversy flared, I wasn't surprised to see this. Mutahar, who ran a podcast with Nux Taku, talking to friend of the stream, Chud Logic, about it. Mutahar initially explains his uncertainty about the situation.
He did tell me, like, they interacted before. I think it was, like, the collab shit. Okay. And from just, like, behind the scenes, he told me that this was all, like, a fucking joke or something at the time, which is, like, I never pressed so hard into that, just because I have no knowledge of, like, how far his relationship goes. In
spite of the uncertainty, though, things quickly got both spicier and muddier.
Are you going to keep him off the podcast?
No, we would cancel the podcast. It's not happening. The podcast is done.
This is hard because obviously, you know, people want me
podcast
to
is done, yeah. Podcast is done now.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the podcast is over. We are not filming the last episode. It's over.
Pretty nuclear statement in this context.
Is that are you serious?
Yeah, we're not doing the podcast anymore. It's done.
Why?
We're supposed to film on Tuesday. Well, there's a couple reasons for it. A lot of that was obviously some of the Shad stuff too, because we were kind of sitting there. We're like, me and Caleb, we were just like, this is, I don't know, it's weird. The other thing was we just want to redo things, maybe like 2 months down the road or something, between each other, and that's kind of where we're at.
This is the key snippet. 2 things are mentioned: the podcast ending and an episode being cancelled. And 2 reasons are given: the Nux stuff being weird and an apparent plan they already had. Do the 2 reasons apply to both? Does one apply to one? Does one apply to the other?
Nux Taku getting iced out. Sorry.
I mean, for me, for like Nux or whatever, like I talked to him and he's a good friend behind the scenes for sure. And this whole situation, like I would have to really look into more of his involvement and like everything. Like if you want to walk me through it, like I'd be completely fine.
And then somehow it gets even less clear, because despite such definitive statements, Mutahar is again expressing uncertainty, before later really homing in on the element of Nux Taku's character that irks me.
I feel like if he had any interaction, he should just come clean entirely. It does come across a little weird that he made a whole response, but he admitted that part. It's like, I think if you're in that camp, if you ever interacted with Chadman, just completely own up to it once, take the fucking L and move on. But that's just weird if you're not able to. I don't know. It almost seems like kind of like hiding an interaction for no real reason.
And then a later comment sounds even worse.
I mean, there's no reason to really hide it unless like the interaction was more deeper than it was initially let on, is what I would say.
There's more said than I've shown in these clips, but I think it's clear that while the specifics were murky, the tone was a little hardcore. It's easy to understand how people could interpret this in different ways, but there were 1 or 2 concrete statements, and I want to focus on this one.
We are not filming the last episode. It's over.
Cut and dry. It's over. They're not filming the last episode. I think we ourselves can home in on that and say the cancellation of the last episode is probably down to the Nux Taku controversy regarding association with Shadman. But as with so many things that relate to Nux, even with this, there's slipping, there's sliding, there's sliminess. There did end up being a final episode recorded and published featuring Nux. Which isn't the issue. I'm not saying, he said there wasn't going to be and now there is. No, it's fine. It's alright. You can change your mind. However, what bothers me is the blatant sweeping, as the kids call it, that accompanied this. One more example of spineless, subtly deceptive behavior to throw on the pile. You see, it must have been Nux Taku's lucky day. Chud Logic and a Twitter user, understandably given what Mutahar said and the way he said it, mischaracterized the situation. Chud's title stated Nux was kicked from the podcast, and the tweet claimed it was ending because of this controversy, which as we know now is not accurate. Nux seizes on this error in his defense video. He even has a big ol' yapping clip from Mutahar reinforcing that it's false. The podcast was not ending because of Nux. In fact, they intend to work together in the future if possible. Great. Looks true to me. What's the problem? That isn't all there is. That's not even necessarily the juiciest part. The announcement of the episode cancellation sounded like a snap, in-the-moment emotional decision. And the reason for that at the time was most definitely the controversy, as confirmed on another Chud Logic stream by Mutahar's other half via Super Chat.
Oh, okay. Right. So the truth is, this is Dojangle saying this, I believe, okay? So, oh, dude. Is this it? Is this true? Can we say this? The last episode was the reason it wasn't filmed because of the Shadman stuff, but the podcast was ending anyway. And the way Mutahar explained it made it sound like the podcast was ending because of that stuff, but it was actually the fact the last episode wasn't being filmed because of that stuff, and it was going to end anyway. Is that it? Is that the fair assessment of this?
Doe confirms this characterization as accurate, though it's worth noting her super chat says it was the reason at the time. Following this, Chud perceptively notes.
So yeah, it feels like what this does then, it enables it to be like, well, it's not ending because of me. But then if it is true that the last episode wasn't filmed because of the Shadman stuff, I mean, that is worth a mention, right? But he's probably not going to mention it because he can just focus on well, it was going to end anyway. It was going to end anyway, type thing.
Yep. He lays it out again.
I think it's probably true the podcast was ending anyway, and it's just the final episode isn't being recorded because of this little drama that happened with the Shadman stuff, right?
During this, Doe chimes in to say that the last episode has, in fact, been recorded. They backtracked, as we know because it's been released at this point, with a full cast. The otherwise perceptive Chud misses this in chat and proceeds to theorize.
Like, clearly, to me, what this seems like is, like, they don't want to fucking burn Nux Taku super hard over this. So they're giving this little out of, like, we'll make it about the podcast ending without really talking much about the reasoning for the last episode not getting filmed. That's what it seems like to me.
To which Doe replies and confirms they don't want to burn him. They're still friends. Or Fwen's looking out for Fwen's. So it's a sweep. A minor sweep, but a sweep nonetheless. Last episode was originally going to be cancelled over creepy shit? Into the memory hole. That statement was never made. And while they do briefly help Nux out with the drama at the start of their last episode, nothing about Mutahar's original intent or statement of cancellation is mentioned as far as I can tell. Never happened, I guess. Doesn't matter. Not pertinent to direct discussion of the drama that was directly responsible for this episode being planned to never occur. In fact, I feel really sleepy. Maybe Mutahar never had those feelings or said those things that thousands of people have heard. I must be mistaken. To me, this is one more little tiny PR asswipe for the guy who constantly needs spot cleaning when his butt gets too dirty. Look, it's cool to have internet video friends, but when that means clearly strategizing to manipulate an audience's perception of reality to their benefit, it rubs me the wrong way. Once you're creating mass media, once you're broadcasting to people, that's not being a good friend. That's called being compromised by friendship. Though, to be fair, friendship might not be the right term. Think about it. We saw in that interview, Mutahar didn't really know what was happening, but was ready to knee-jerk throw Nux Taku under the bus. Controversy? Who? Not doing the last episode, even though that's a really, really bad look for Nux Taku. Maybe Mutahar's explanation was so garbled out of panic. The worst of both worlds. Memory holding what happened because it's a bad look for your associate, but they're not a close enough associate really to have not knee-jerk screwed them on a live stream in the first place, which you then need to pretend didn't happen. It's a real shame that Chud chilled on it after getting his answers so quickly, for some reason. I think there was plenty more fun that could have been had. This isn't even really a high-pressure thing. The stakes aren't that high for Nux Taku. It's not like much of his existing audience would turn on him over a Shadman association, regardless of how tenuous or close it may be, or because large creators cancel a show over it, making it look like they're judging him. Just look at what's enticed them to click on videos over the years. They'd probably be into it. But, as usual, that's just another one of my harmful opinions.